The scenes from WHAS 11 news film. 50 years ago today, September 4th, 1975, it was the first day of school for the new JCPS, no longer a city and county school system, but a school district under federal court order.
That order required JCPS to desegregate the schools and start busing black and white students across the community to integrate the school system with a better racial balance. And joining us tonight is Terry Brooks of Kentucky Youth Advocates. He was a new principal who actually got bused himself as part of that order.
Also joining us, Dr. Kevin Cosby, president of Simmons College of Kentucky. His father, Lakin, was a school board member and became the first African-American to be chairman of the school board in 1988. Kevin, 50 years later, what are your memories from that time in 1975? This was the first day of school.
It was my senior year at Ballard High School, so we lived out in Barbermead, out in East Jefferson County. So I was not bused, but I did observe some of the fear, anxiety, and some trepidation that many of the persons who were there at Ballard, from students to parents to staff and faculty, had about what will it be like having these students from Beecher Terrace and from Village West to come. How was it going to be?
And Terry, you actually were bused as a principal. Tell us about that, and what was your memory of that first day?
Well, part of the federal court order was they very symbolically had 3 white principals and 3 black principals essentially switch schools. So I was bused to what had been a predominantly black school before busing. So that's my memory. The images of that day are a bus being burned in front of my grandparents' home on Preston Highway. Wow. I was telling Brother Cosby that day and several days afterward, we had to send staff to the overpass on Hill Street, 7th and Hill, because anti-busing vigilantes had intended to drop bricks through school bus windows. So the issues in school, how you teach kids, were really very secondary, if we're honest, for several months, maybe several years after that. So it was a tumultuous time for this whole community.
Is this even a community you recognize back 50 years ago, Kevin, when you look at this news film that we're showing?
Oh, it's amazing. I do remember the tension that existed in Louisville, and the rock throwing and the riots that were taking place. So it's amazing to look back at the attitudes that people had about integrating our school system.
Your father was such an important figure with the education here in Louisville. He had been a fixture with the school system for quite a while. What did he talk to you about? What were his recollections of what was happening then?
Well, he was a strong proponent of desegregation and integrated schools because he understood the importance of education. And growing up here in Louisville and coming from Alabama, he knew what it meant to be the victim of segregated education. So, for example, when he was a college student, he could not attend the University of Louisville in 1950 because of legal segregation in our city, in our state.
Wow. Now, Terry, as principal, how were your students dealing with it at the time? I mean, we had the National Guard in. Several of the bus drivers didn't show up for the first week. What were they going through?
It may not surprise you. Kids are kids, and they very quickly got in the groove. What I perceived as the soap opera and drama in this community was adult-driven. It was not kid-driven. Teachers also delivered. So a lot of the surrounding noise that you associate with those days were outside the school, not inside the school.
So let's get to the question I want to ask both of you. Where do we stand 50 years later? So in 2000, the consent decree went away, and then right after that, 2007, the Supreme Court ruled that they didn't have to do the busing plan, but JCPS has still tried to keep the schools integrated. So do we have any success, Kevin, in your mind, or was this a 50-year failure?
I think it all depends on how you define success. I think that the success was at least they had the courage to recognize that the system was a flawed system, it was not working, and that we needed to do something about it. We can debate whether or not the answer was busing as it was implemented at the time, but at least they had the foresight and the wisdom to know we've got a problem. Today, we try to ignore problems. We act like it does not exist. And we often blame the communities that have been the historic victims of oppression and exclusion.
And Terry, real quickly for you.
Well, I think we'd all agree we still have a crisis when it comes to equity of outcome. But before we can ever get to equity of outcome, we had to have equity of opportunity. And what folks like Lakin Cosby did, your frequent guest Sam Corbett did, they stood up and said that against public will, we are going to make this work. Whether we agree or disagree, we're going to make this work to give every kid in this community an equity of opportunity. Now, we got to still work on equity of outcome, but the courage the community leaders showed during that time should not be forgotten.
Correct.
Well, so great to have you both on as we try to forward the conversation. Thank you both, Dr. Cosby and Terry.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. WHAS 11 is in partnership with the Courier-Journal. You were invited to a community conversation later this month. It's going to be September 17th at the Academy at Shawnee.
It's called 50 Years After Busing. A community conversation will look back at the history, and we'll be streaming it live that night on WHS 11 Plus, our free app.